What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with overall news involving the markets, what you should be watching for when it comes to earnings, how things could end up moving for tomorrow, as we have a very, very important day because we have the FOMC meeting, not to mention Jerome Powell giving a speech. So I'm going to break down how all of this could affect Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and NIO, and also talk about some big developments on the charts. But let me first mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. You deposit $25,000 more, you're guaranteed 75 of them. And the offer ends very soon in just about 10 hours. This means that you could sign up in the next 10 hours and still reap these benefits as long as you deposit the money very, very soon. But just know the offer is almost over, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, for NIO, we got a very, very nice move again today. NIO is up 2.61% despite the fact that the stock market was down quite a bit. SPY dropped pretty hard, down 1.58%. The QQQ is down 1.89%. We continue to see the market look pretty weak. Despite the fact that NIO is once again at this resistance, I want to say that NIO is building some strength. But we have a big test tomorrow as we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. So I'm going to break down more important information about this. So what's going on with tomorrow? As a reminder, tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. Okay, we have some very important data coming out at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 15 minutes after the market opens. We have some manufacturing PMI data coming out. And then at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the ISM manufacturing PMI and the JOLTS job openings report also coming out. That's going to be very, very important. So we'll have to see what this causes. Make sure you guys are very, very careful amidst all of this data that's being released. So for the first 15 minutes and 30 minutes of the day, expect some volatility depending on this data. And then the market's going to get very quiet after the data comes out, probably just chop around a bit, trade sideways for a couple of hours. And then we have two more things. At 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the interest rate hike decision coming out. The market may make a move based off this. We're expecting the Fed to keep rates the same. And there's a very, very high probability that that's going to happen. And then at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, we have the press conference when Jerome Powell is going to be giving his speech. Whatever Jerome Powell says is going to cause some high volatility, and I just can't wait to see what he says. What he says could cause some big moves, so we'll just have to see how things go. On top of all of this, right now there's a lot of sentiment that's kind of shifting. People think that Jerome Powell might have to be hawkish, so we will see if that ends up being the case. That's why the market kind of dipped a little bit. There's a lot of fear about that, not to mention other changes. Seeing that inflation has been going up a bit, you guys can see all items CPI is still increasing. There is a risk of once again another spike in inflation. So we just have to wait and see if there are any changes. Inflation is not really at the target the Fed wants. So we have to be very patient with this and see what the Fed says about this. We'll see if Powell is hawkish or not. And once again, guys, there's about a 95.6% chance we get basically the Fed keeps rates the same tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen for sure, though. We'll have to wait and see. They're most likely going to keep rates the same, but what matters more is going to be the future months. We'll see what happens with that, as that's going to be important for data. Now, for earnings, as a reminder, we just had Amazon, AMD, and Supermicro announce their earnings. For tomorrow, we have Pfizer, CVS, and very, very minor earnings. Earnings will remain very minor until Thursday, and we have Aapl announcing its earnings. So we'll wait and see what happens with Amazon, AMD, and Supermicro. For Amazon, Amazon is actually doing pretty decently right now. It's actually up quite a bit. Revenue is up about 24%. Actually, I'm sorry, Amazon's kind of flat right now. It's not up that much. Revenue was up about 24%. We actually have the numbers here. EPS was a nice beat at 98 cents per share. We had revenue at about $143.3 billion, well above expectations. Web services is at about 25 billion above expectations. And then advertising revenue is also up quite a bit. So operating income soared more than 200% in the period. Sales are up 13%, and they expect a continued jump in profitability, so pretty good earnings from them. Now, revenue in the current quarter was not bad as well. They're also going to be looking at guidance. Their earnings growth has been driven by lots of cost-cutting tweaks, so not bad whatsoever, and nice growth in sales. So when it comes to their revenue, I just want to say that once again, Amazon is just in a very, very interesting position where it hasn't really announced a quarterly dividend. It's possible that a lot of investors were looking for that, but their guidance is actually pretty decent overall. I would say it's decent guidance and some good earnings. Share price is up a bit, but things could change depending on other announcements. For now, the share price is still up a bit, so we'll see if that holds. AMD, it's actually down quite a bit. It's dropped despite the fact that they had inline forecasts. So I want to break down some things about AMD. Right here, EPS was above expectations. Revenue was also slightly above expectations. However, their net income wasn't too bad as well. It was actually a little bit better than what expectations were. So not too bad. But looking at what's happening, their overall forecasts right over here are actually signaling lots of growth. But the thing that's worth noting is that their guidance is just barely aligned with expectations. They expect about $4 billion in AI chip sales, up from 3.5 billion from before. But their overall revenue forecast is still just barely aligned with expectations. Besides that, there wasn't really enough to get the share prices to go up. So with that happening, some of their increases and the projections are not as strong as what we were expecting. And that's part of why the share price is still kind of flat right now. It's kind of dropping a bit. So unfortunately, despite inline forecasts and some pretty good earnings, I would say the share price is still down. Same thing with Supermicro. They actually missed on revenue despite their very bullish full year guidance. So it looks to me like these investors are just picking what they want to use to just drop these stocks. EPS was a beat. Revenue was a miss. Revenue is still up over 200%. And we're still seeing some nice growth, so it's looking pretty good in my opinion. However, I just wanted to say that there's a little drop overall in the share price despite that. So it is what it is, guys. Make sure you guys are prepared. As far as NIO goes, there hasn't been anything new I've seen on their Twitter page. I already talked about this news yesterday, but I did see some good news that came out when it comes to their registrations. Don't forget that very soon NIO is going to be announcing how their sales have gone for the month of April. And we're looking at some pretty good projections. We got a nice increase for the last week for April. Right over here, NIO did over or close to 5,000 insurance registrations from April 22nd to April 28th, showing lots of growth for this month. I would say it's been a pretty good month for them. And this could actually help the share price, especially when we see more data coming out over the next couple of days. So that's good news for them. McGuire gave them a neutral rating. There's not really anything changing here. Price risk ratio is up a bit because NIO is gaining some strength. We tend to be green about 56% of the time historically on Wednesdays, but this also depends on what Jerome Powell says. Finally, volume was about 53 million above expectations, above average volume. Everything else is looking pretty decent. So the question is, what's happening to NIO? Honestly, guys, NIO is on a very, very nice uptrend, but whether this continues or not depends on Jerome Powell. Because we approach this resistance around this 4.8 zone, so all the way up here, we could see a little retracement on NIO, a retest of 4.61, maybe a little bit lower before it tries to rebound again. And then we'll see what Jerome Powell causes. If Jerome Powell causes a pump, we're going up to $5. If he gives us the rug pull, we're going to be dipping back down. We have this gap to fill at 4.2, so just be careful. We will see what Jerome Powell causes, so please be prepared, guys. Keep this in the back of your minds. For Aapl, looking at Aapl, I just want to say that this dipped quite a bit. Earnings comes out very soon. If Jerome Powell causes a pump, this could drop a little bit more towards 168, then bounce and start pushing back up to 174 to fill this imbalance. If Jerome Powell causes a rug pull, Aapl is going to be sinking all the way down to about 166. So we'll just have to see what Jerome Powell says. That's going to be the most important factor for tomorrow. For the QQQ, we're kind of dipping a little bit. So we look a little bearish on the 4 hours, so I could see a little bit more downside. We could be approaching basically this 420 area, and we'll see if we get a bounce off that or not. If we dip a little bit more and hit like 420, if Jerome Powell causes a pump, we could easily push back up to 428. If Jerome Powell causes a rug pull, we're going to be dipping all the way down to potentially 415. So it all depends on what Jerome Powell says. The chart is looking a bit more bearish, so just give this some time. It might dip a little bit more, but then Jerome Powell will be the big factor determining whether we get a bounce or not. Same thing with SPY. To me, SPY looks like it could actually dip a little bit more, get very close to like the 499 area. This 497 to 499 area could be tested. And we'll see if Jerome Powell causes a big pump back up to 506, or if we get a big rug pull all the way down to about 494. So it all depends on what Jerome Powell says. So we'll just have to be very, very patient and give this the time it needs. But I do see potential for this to dip a little bit more before it tries to rebound. I think that's a possibility, but it depends on what Jerome Powell says. So look for a little bit more downside tomorrow. We're going to likely dip a bit more, but then we'll see if Jerome Powell changes anything like that. For Tesla, unfortunately, we're on a bit of a dip. We have this like big gap over here to fill. We are dipping a little bit. We're approaching support currently at this 180 area. If Powell, so I think it might dip a little bit more to 180, and then we'll see if Jerome Powell causes a bounce back up to about 190, or if we get a rug pull. If we get the rug pull, we have a gap to fill all the way down towards 168. So we'll have to be very patient and see what Jerome Powell causes. That's going to be key. And then we have Nvda, which is dipping a little bit. especially because of the earnings we got from AMD and the others. If we continue to fall in Nvidia, look for 826. If we bounce, we're going to be pushing for 862. In my personal opinion, we're kind of in the middle. It depends on what Powell says. We look a little bearish right now, so it might dip a little bit more. I think we could test 830 before we try to bounce, possibly based off technicals. So look for a little bit of a dip, and then we'll see if Jerome Powell causes more downside or a bounce. So I'll be watching for that very carefully. With that being said, that's a very, very quick update about the markets for tomorrow. We'll see what Jerome Powell causes. He is known for being the biggest market maker, and we'll see if he moves the stocks in the directions we want to see. Look for a little dip tomorrow morning on NIO. We could retest 4.61 to about 4.5, this range right here. And we'll see if there's a big bounce or not. It also depends on what Powell says. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll just be very optimistic nonetheless. With that being said, it all depends on Powell. So that's going to be the biggest factor for tomorrow. Get ready, guys. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you, and peace out.